everybody, it's Stacey Duffy here, your Denver Metro real estate resource, and today I wanted to talk about sight unseen offers. So what I'm referring to is if you're a buyer and you want to offer to buy a house, submit an offer, write a contract on a house that you have not seen, or if you're on the other side of that, maybe you're selling your house and you received an offer. So I got one last week before we even started showings, and I got an offer and I'm like, well, they haven't seen it yet because no one has seen it yet. And then I'll also talk about the third scenario, which happens a lot more often, which is, you know, maybe a family or a couple or more than one person is buying the house and one person has seen it and one person hasn't, something like that. I'll do the whole parents helping buy video, and once I post that, I'll put it down below. I haven't shot that yet, but that kind of ties into this too down the road. That's a little bit different scenario. But regarding sight unseen offers, different strokes for different folks, right? So in our current market, or has been this way for a while now, but in our absolutely nuts market, extreme sellers market, a lot of buyers feel like they have to, sometimes if they're not in town and they're relocating, they don't have the time to fly into town and look at something and put it on an offer before it's likely going to go under contract. So they will make a sight unseen offer, which means I have not seen the house. Or one of them has seen the house and the other one has not, or something like that. I'll talk to the second scenario a little bit more, but in a minute. Excuse me. So buyers are doing it. That's one reason is they're doing it as, you know, relocation. They're not in town, something like that. The second scenario that I've run across more recently is what I call buying your way to the front of the line, which is, you know what, pictures are good enough. By God, we need to buy something. It can't be as bad as some other things we've seen based on the pictures. It just isn't possible. We drove by it. You know what? We'll buy it sight unseen. Just jump us to the front of the line and take our offer before you show it to a bunch of other people, because we don't want to have to compete and we know we probably won't be able to. So we'll try to entice you either with money or terms or timing or something like that to cut off your other showings and take our offer up front. So I don't know. It depends on the scenario. Not always a bad thing. However, if I have a buyer, let's say I'm representing the buyer. If I have a buyer that wants to make a sight unseen offer on a property, maybe for an investor, I would consider that, you know, that has purchased multiple properties. They're familiar with the area. They're familiar with, okay, it's a 1950s home in this part of town. Here's likely going to be my issues. I can budget for that. I can, you know, I know what that's going to cost me. All right, cool. I would consider that. I'm not a fan of sight unseen offers, only because they so very rarely actually work out. So think about it. I mean, most people won't even buy a car without test driving it. And you're talking adding at least a zero, you know, usually more a couple zeros or, you know, exponentially higher price. And you haven't even walked inside. So that I find hard to believe. It usually doesn't work out in my experience. It's very, very, very rare that it does. So at least for, you know, hey, one person buying it sight unseen, whatever. The scenarios where I think it could work out a little bit more is where one person has seen it, one person hasn't. If you have people that have purchased, you know, a handful of properties, 2, 3, maybe 4 properties, if they relocate on a regular basis, you know, one person tends to go there first, either to start their job or to find a place to live, and then the other person brings the rest of the family later or the rest of the stuff or something like that. I find that tends to work out a little bit more because there's at least a trust factor there, right? So, you know, a portion of the people buying the house have seen it. And then maybe they have an inspector that they trust, or their realtor recommends an inspector that they trust, or something like that to give them a level of confidence in the property and kind of alleviate some of those concerns. So regarding buying your way to the front of the line on something you haven't seen because you want dibs, I mean, I commend you. It's definitely a decent strategy. And if you're willing to pay for the strategy and pay for the convenience to buy your way to the front, and essentially what you're buying is a first right of refusal. So what that, I mean, depending on how, you know, your realtor may recommend this, not many realtors are doing this, but it's actually kind of smart. Some sellers will take it, some sellers won't. And I'll do a different scenario that I'll also put a video down below of when this came up for one of my sellers and how he handled it.
just as an example. But it's not a bad option, but you got to make the offer enticing enough for a seller to take, because most realtors, seasoned realtors and sellers that have been through the process before, or at least the realtors making, advising the seller, is going to let them know the risks of that, the risks of a sight unseen offer and the chances of it actually going through. So you have to make it worth their time. But anyway, I'm not a huge fan of them. I think it's just way too expensive of a purchase for people to do logistically, unless it is such a small percentage of their portfolio. Like I mentioned, investors, if they've got, $2 million in property and this is a $250 townhouse and $250,000 townhouse, and they're like, yeah, cool. All right. I'm familiar. As long as it's halfway decent and the inspector looks at it, I'm good. That's a different scenario. When you're talking most people that are buying their primary residence, it's way too expensive of a purchase for people to feel comfortable. They may be like, you know what, I'm desperate, I'll do anything. But then they see it and there's always this questioning, like, is something wrong? Am I screwing myself? Like, there's always this thing in the back of their mind. And I will tell you that back of the mind gut feeling usually wins out. Even if it makes sense to do, it's the emotional piece that doesn't line up. So a lot of people will go with that and make their decisions based on emotion, and then they justify them logically. So anyway, just my thought on sight unseen offers. I'm not a fan. They have their place. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do, but it's really a crapshoot, guys. I mean, it very, very, very rarely works out. And when it does, it's usually because they're either an investor with a large portfolio and it's not that big of a chunk of money to them, relatively, or you've got, a couple or family or something like that, and some people have seen it and some people haven't, and there's a trust factor there. So anyway, I'd be curious your thoughts on this. Have you purchased a property sight unseen? If so, how did it go? Have you made an offer and then when you actually saw the house, it was terrible? Fill me in. I'm curious what experiences people have had here and what your thoughts are, because I know that really differs depending on market and location and type of property and just anecdotally. So anyway, leave those down below. If you like my videos, please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate it. If you're looking to buy or sell here in the Denver metro area, I'd be happy to help. Please feel free to reach out to me directly. I do this every day. I absolutely love my job. I want to help everybody get to a better place. So physically and emotionally. So feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is on my website. Link for that is down below. And thanks so much for the time and have a great day.